Why did the jungle feel too quiet that morning? Even the birds seemed to know something was coming. The alarm echoed through the damp air at Fort Sherman, slicing through the heavy humidity like a blade. The scent of wet earth mixed with the sharp tang of gunpowder from the nearby firing range. 15 staff members stood in silence at the base of the 40-foot observation tower, their gazes fixed on the woman adjusting her scope above them. Specialist Martinez. Quiet, methodical, invisible to most. To the men below, she was just an observer, another pair of eyes in a place full of warriors. Just an observer, one of them muttered. Seaman Rodriguez. His tone wasn't cruel, just dismissive. In the world of elite operators, every ounce of respect had to be earned under fire, not from a tower with a notebook. From her perch, Martinez didn't flinch. She continued logging coordinates, nodding radio frequencies and checking signal relays. Every motion deliberate, every breath even. Below her, Petty Officer Morrison tapped his boot against the muddy ground, impatient as ever, glancing at his watch as if discipline itself were running late. The simulation alarm sounded, cutting the morning stillness. The jungle around Fort Sherman came alive, or at least, that's what everyone thought. From 40 feet up, the world looked different. The jungle stretched endlessly, an ocean of green waves rising and falling in the humid breeze. Martinez could see everything from up here, the SEAL team assembling near the staging area, the medics checking supplies, Morrison giving orders with the kind of confidence that came from 8 years of survival and combat. He raised his voice so everyone could hear him, and maybe so she could too. Listen up. This isn't a drill you can coast through. Limited comms, full realism. We're simulating a medical evacuation under fire. No hand-holding. No observer interference. The last part wasn't in the official briefing. It was for her. Morrison didn't even look up, he didn't have to. His words hung in the air long after the others moved out. Martinez stayed focused on her work, her calm demeanor betraying nothing. The metal tower swayed gently under the morning wind. The hum of insects had softened, replaced by an eerie stillness that pressed against her eardrums. Even the air felt different, thicker, heavier. She noted it, logged it, ignored the unease curling at the edge of instinct. Fort Sherman's jungle wasn't just a training ground. It was a living thing, breathing, watching, listening. TOC to SEAL Team Alpha. Exercise parameters are green. Begin Phase 1. Morrison acknowledged, his voice crisp through the radio. Roger that. SEAL Team Alpha moving out. The team melted into the vegetation, ghosts swallowed by green. Through her scope, Martinez tracked their movement, the subtle signals, the fluid formations, the precision that only years of shared experience could create. These were men who could move through hell without making a sound. Still, she caught something unusual, faint heat signatures, shapes moving in sectors that shouldn't have had anyone assigned. She adjusted her focus. Additional personnel not on her tactical map. Their movement wasn't random, it was patterned, deliberate. Someone was changing the rules of the exercise. Her radio crackled. TOC, this is SEAL Team Alpha, approaching objective area, all systems green. She waited for the reply. It came. Routine. Normal. 5 minutes later, nothing was normal anymore. TOC, this is SEAL Team Alpha, medical emergency. 1 man down, severe injury. Request immediate evac support. Morrison's voice was sharp, urgent. Static. TOC, please respond. We have a critical situation here. Silence. Martinez straightened, hand instinctively going to her sidearm though no threat was near. She looked down from the tower. Chief Ramirez was already hurrying across the field toward her, tension etched into his weathered face. Observer, he called up, voice steady but strained. Are you monitoring SEAL Team Alpha's transmissions? Affirmative, Chief. They're reporting a medical emergency. TOC's not responding. Main antennas down. Lightning strike. Communications are offline. We're working on it, but it might take an hour. Martinez didn't hesitate. Understood, Chief. I have backup comms, I'll establish contact. Her fingers moved fast across the controls. The backup system hummed to life, a direct line reserved for emergencies. She'd tested it countless times, never in a real-world scenario, until now. SEAL Team Alpha, this is Observation Tower 1. I copy your emergency. A pause, then Morrison's voice wary. Observation Tower, who is this? Specialist Martinez, I have backup communication. What's your situation? She could almost hear the skepticism in his silence before he answered. Compound fracture left leg, severe bleeding, possible shock. Martinez's tone didn't waver. Copy that. Stand by while I coordinate medevac. Switching channels, she contacted Fort Sherman Medical. Her voice carried the calm precision of someone who had done this before, many times before. Fort Sherman Medical, this is Observation Tower 1. Priority 1 medevac required. Coordinates, 776 458 92. Patient in critical condition. Within seconds the reply came. Medical flight spinning up. ETA 22 minutes. She switched back to Morrison's frequency. Helicopter inbound, ETA 22 minutes. Begin prepping a landing zone. Negative, Morrison replied. No open terrain, dense canopy. We can't get a bird in here. Martinez zoomed in on her maps. Elevation, canopy density, terrain gradient, all calculated in seconds. Possible clearing 800 meters northeast. Grid 77,652,895. Can you move him? Through that terrain, it'll be slow. We'll have to build a stretcher. Do it. I'm coordinating ground support to meet you there. Her tone left no room for debate. Back at the base, Chief Ramirez watched from below, half in awe. You sure you've done this before? She didn't look down. Let's say I've studied the manuals closely, Chief. Minutes bled away. Through her scope, Martinez tracked Morrison's team dragging the improvised stretcher through the mud, the weight of their injured teammate pressing against the limits of endurance. Then the situation worsened. Observer, this is Morrison. Opposing force still thinks this is a drill. They're maneuvering on us. Martinez froze. Her mind ran through every protocol. None of them accounted for this. Can you signal them? Negative. They're on radio silence. We'd have to leave our man. Martinez made her decision. Rules or not, lives were on the line. She grabbed the emergency flare gun from the rack, loaded a red star cluster and fired. The flare tore through the canopy, bursting into a blood-red flower above the jungle. Every trained eye knew what it meant, real emergency. Cease all exercise immediately. Her radio exploded with confused voices. Observation Tower 1, what's going on? All units, this is Observation Tower 1, she said firmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. We have a real-world medical emergency. All training activities in Grid 776 will halt immediately. Moments later, confirmation came. Copy that, Tower 1. Wolfpack unit withdrawing and moving to assist. The opposing force was standing down, finally. She switched frequencies again. SEAL Team Alpha opposing force notified. They'll assist in clearing the landing zone. Continue to LZ. Copy, moving now. Our man's fatting fast. The minutes that followed stretched into an eternity. Martinez coordinated between the SEALs, the medical crew, and the ground units like a conductor orchestrating a symphony under fire. Every instruction timed to seconds, every transmission deliberate. Chief Ramirez climbed up beside her, his breath ragged. He looked at the tactical display, then at her, the calm precision, the exact language, the way she anticipated responses before they came. That level of coordination, he murmured. Where did you learn that? Martinez didn't answer. Her eyes stayed fixed on the screen. Observation Tower 1 to SEAL Team Alpha status. Still moving, patients going into shock. She relayed the message to medical. Fort Sherman Medical, patient's pulse weak, possible hypovolemia. Advise. Keep him warm, elevate legs if possible, expedite extraction. She transmitted the instructions back, her voice calm as the storm built inside her. The sound of rotors soon echoed in the distance. Relief and tension collided in her chest. Medical Flight 27, this is Observation Tower 1. Landing zone marked by mirror signal at grid 77,652,895. Approach from the south. Copy Tower 1, visual acquired. The helicopter dipped through the canopy, blades churning the humid air. Morrison's team emerged from the jungle, covered in sweat and mud, but alive. The medics took over within seconds. The wounded man lifted into the aircraft, and just like that, the jungle swallowed the noise again. Silence. Only then did Martinez exhale. Below, Chief Ramirez looked up, expression unreadable. "You probably just saved that man's life," he said. "That's not observer-level performance." "Just doing my job, Chief." He studied her. "You sure that's all it is?" She didn't answer. The red flare smoke still hung faintly in the humid air like a secret she wasn't ready to explain. That night the base was quiet again, too quiet. Reports filed, debriefs done, questions asked but not pressed. Morrison's teammate would live. The system had worked because one woman hadn't waited for permission to act. As she climbed back into the tower for the night watch, the jungle was once again calm, the distant hum of insects returning. Martinez leaned against the rail, listening to the night. For the first time in a long while she felt something stir, not pride, not relief. Just wait. She'd broken protocol, but she'd saved a life. And in the military, that kind of math rarely balanced cleanly. Somewhere down below, Morrison was telling his team what had happened. About the observer who had coordinated their rescue from a radio tower. About the silent voice that had guided them out of chaos. And up above, that same voice whispered to the empty jungle, "Sometimes, silence saves more lives than orders ever could." Why did the people she saved now look at her like she was the mystery? The next morning, Fort Sherman woke to a different rhythm. The jungle, still damp from the night's rain, steamed under the rising sun. Training resumed, orders echoed and rifles clacked, but whispers carried louder than gunfire. They were all talking about her. From the barracks to the command tent, her name was a quiet rumor wrapped in disbelief. The observer coordinated the whole thing. From the tower. "You mean she ran comms, the medevac, and the field response?" Every retelling made it sound less possible. In the observation tower, Martinez logged routine data with the same calm precision she always did. Her pen moved across the paper, her eyes never drifting toward the base where the murmurs grew stronger. She'd been through this before, the aftermath of doing something you weren't supposed to be capable of. Below, Morrison approached the tower's base, his steps heavy with the kind of gratitude that comes laced with confusion. He looked up, squinting against the sunlight. "Observer Martinez." She leaned over the railing, her expression neutral. "Yes, petty officer." He hesitated. Words didn't come easy to men like him, not ones that felt this personal. Just wanted to say thank you. "You saved Rodriguez." The medic said another 15 minutes and he exhaled, cutting the sentence short. "You didn't have to do all that." Martinez nodded. "He's one of ours, isn't he?" Morrison blinked. "Your Army, we're Navy." She tilted her head slightly. "Out here, we're all just uniforms trying to bring each other home." He didn't know what to say to that. Instead, he offered a small, respectful nod, a kind that didn't come easily from SEALs to observers. "If you ever need anything from my team, you've got it." When he walked away, Martinez returned to her scope, her face unreadable. Gratitude made her uneasy. It drew attention, and attention drew questions. And someone was already asking them. Inside the command tent, Chief Ramirez was rereading the after-action report for the third time. His pen hovered over the signature line, but he couldn't bring himself to sign. The report was accurate but incomplete. Martinez's calm under pressure, the precision of her radio timing, her tactical language, it was too advanced, too instinctive, not something learned from manuals or base protocols. He tapped the desk once, decision made. "Personnel records," he called into the comm. "Send me the full file on Specialist Martinez Observation Unit." The response came minutes later. "Chief, her full files restricted. Higher clearance required." He frowned. Restricted for an observer. That was the first clue that something didn't fit. Outside, the air smelled of rain-soaked steel and gun oil. Morrison SEALs were cleaning gear in silence, each one carrying the image of Rodriguez's pale, bloodied face, and the voice that had cut through static to save him. Rodriguez himself was in the medical bay, recovering. His leg was casted and suspended, the sterile hum of equipment replacing jungle noise. When Chief Ramirez stopped by to check on him, Rodriguez grinned weakly. "Chief, did they tell you what that woman did?" "I read the report," Ramirez replied. "No, sir," Rodriguez said, shaking his head. "You didn't see it. She ran that medevac like she'd done it 100 times before. Every call, every step, she knew exactly who to contact, when to move us, how to manage the field." Ramirez studied him for a moment. "You think she's done that before?" "I think she's done a lot of things before." That evening, rain fell again, a heavy, jungle kind of rain that drowned out voices and left only thoughts. Martinez sat alone in the observation tower, her notebook open but untouched. Below, lights flickered in the command tent. The radio beside her hissed with static, a reminder of how fragile communication really was. Chief Ramirez climbed the tower slowly, his boots slipping against the wet metal steps. When he reached her platform, she didn't turn around. "Quiet night," she said. "Quieter than I'd like," he replied. "Mind if I ask a question?" "You just did," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "All right, then here's another. Where'd you learn to coordinate like that yesterday? That wasn't basic observer work." She looked through her scope again, as if searching for the answer somewhere in the darkness. "Standard communication training, Chief. Plus, I read a lot of manuals." He laughed under his breath. "I've read those manuals too, Martinez. They don't teach you how to manage a multi-unit operation while coordinating air assets and ground movement under pressure." Silence. He took a step closer. "You ever serve in the field?" Her voice was level, almost rehearsed. "Various assignments, nothing notable." Ramirez studied her face. The faint scars near her jawline, the steadiness in her eyes, the kind of steadiness you didn't get from reading manuals. "Well," he said at last, "whatever your background, you handled that better than most officers I've seen." "Thank you, Chief." He started down the ladder, then paused halfway. "One more thing. Base commander's planning to recommend you for a commendation. You should be ready for that." She turned finally, meeting his eyes. "Respectfully, I'd prefer not to receive any recognition." That stopped him. "You'd rather not be commended for saving a man's life." "I didn't save him," she said. "The team did. I just made sure the line stayed open." He wanted to argue, but something in her tone told him not to. When he left, the tower returned to its silence. Only the sound of rain tapping against metal and distant thunder rolling over the horizon. Hours passed before she finally spoke again, but not into a radio, just to the dark. "Every time I step forward," she whispered, "someone starts looking back." The next morning, the base commander ordered an internal review, standard procedure, he claimed. But word spread fast. Personnel records, file audits, cross-checks. Within a day, everyone knew someone had started digging into the observer's past. Morrison heard it from the supply sergeant. Rodriguez heard it from a nurse. And by evening, the tower was no longer just a vantage point. It was a mystery perched above the jungle. Ramirez finally got his clearance request approved. When the secure file opened on his tablet, he expected to see assignments, dates, qualifications. Instead, he found redacted lines, missing months and designations that didn't belong to any known observer role. One phrase repeated through the gaps: Joint Special Operations attached. He exhaled slowly. That explained everything and nothing. That same night, a message arrived from Marine Corps headquarters. A Colonel Patterson was requesting a call about Specialist Martinez's current assignment. The sender listed him as her former commanding officer. Ramirez took the call in his office after midnight. "Chief Ramirez," the voice said, firm and calm, "I understand you're supervising Specialist Martinez at Fort Sherman." "Yes, sir. She's been with us 3 months." "She's an asset," Patterson said. "One of the best I ever had. Whatever she's doing there, observation, coordination, paperwork, it's not using even half of what she can do." Ramirez hesitated. "Sir, her record lists her as Army, your Marine Corps." A long pause, then Patterson's tone softened. "Let's just say, Chief, her history crosses a few boundaries, and if she's keeping her head down, it's because she's earned that right. She's done enough for 3 lifetimes." When the call ended, Ramirez sat in silence, staring at the rain-smeared window. Somewhere out there, under the moonlight, Martinez was back in her tower, a shadow among shadows. The following day, when he saw her, he didn't ask anything more. He just nodded. She returned it, a small acknowledgement between people who understood that some stories weren't meant to be told. But rumors have their own heartbeat. Within days, everyone on base had their version of her story: former sniper, intelligence operative, ghost of the Marines. None of it confirmed, none of it denied. Only Morrison stayed quiet, because he'd heard her voice when everything fell apart, and in that voice, he'd heard something no rumor could capture: calm under chaos, the sound of someone who'd seen the edge and come back. Late one night, as lightning flashed beyond the jungle, Morrison looked up at the observation tower. The faint silhouette of Martinez stood there, motionless, scanning the darkness. He muttered to himself, "Who the hell are you, Specialist?" And up above, as the thunder rolled closer, Martinez whispered the answer, though no one could hear it but the rain. Someone who already fought her wars. Why did the jungle move when no one was supposed to be out there? By the 3rd week after the accident, Fort Sherman had returned to its routine. Training cycles resumed. Briefings ran like clockwork. The laughter of recruits occasionally broke through the hum of distant rotor blades. But to Specialist Martinez, something about the silence underneath it all felt wrong. From 40 feet up, the jungle looked serene, a living, breathing organism pretending to be still. She had watched enough landscapes to know when they were lying. That morning, the light cut through the canopy and fractured gold. The tower's metal frame was slick with dew. Martinez adjusted her scope, marking heat signatures, tracking the SEAL team's current exercise in the far sectors. Everything was routine, too routine. Chief Martinez, her new supervisor, was on the ground, clipboard in hand, making notes on coordination drills. He was competent, methodical, a man who had no idea the woman above him once called coordinates for real firefights, not training scenarios. Observation Tower 1, this is exercise control. Confirm visual on Sector 3 units. Copy, she said. Visual confirmed. All movements consistent with scheduled drills. Roger that, maintain overwatch. She switched her scope south for a moment, then she froze. There between the shadows. Movement. Slow, deliberate, and not matching any registered team pattern. Her hand tightened around the scope's grip. The heat signatures didn't line up with any known unit formations. She leaned closer, adjusted the focus. 3, no, 4 figures, moving in coordinated tactical spread. She checked her daily briefing sheet. Sector 4 was supposed to be clear. Exercise control, this is Tower 1. I'm observing unscheduled movement in sectors 3 and 4. Can you confirm? The radio crackled. Stand by, Tower 1, checking with Control. Minutes passed, no response. Control, please confirm movement authorization. Another pause, then a voice came back, this time with a tension she didn't like. Tower 1, we have no authorized personnel in those sectors. Continue monitoring. She inhaled slowly. That was bad. Unauthorized movement in Fort Sherman's training zones wasn't just a security risk, it was an alarm bell. The kind that made your pulse slow, not quicken. Through her scope, the figures disappeared behind dense vegetation, then reappeared flanking toward the main training zone. And now there were more of them. A dozen at least. Exercise Control, I now have visual on approximately 20 personnel in tactical formation, moving toward SEAL training area. Advise. The pause that followed wasn't protocol, it was fear. Observation Tower 1, higher headquarters is being contacted. Hold position and keep reporting. Her instincts were already years ahead of the radio. This wasn't lost patrols or wayward trainees. These were professionals. Their formations were too clean. Their discipline too deliberate. Below her, Chief Martinez received her report and immediately looked up, shouting, "Observer, what the hell's going on up there?" She didn't take her eyes off the scope. Unidentified movement, multiple squads, not ours. How many? Too many. He cursed under his breath and grabbed his field radio. Base security, this is Chief Martinez. We have potential unauthorized personnel in active training sectors. Deploy security teams to investigate. Repeat, deploy immediately. Across the base, the calm broke. Radios lit up, boots hit the ground, and the rhythm of Fort Sherman shifted from routine to readiness. Martinez kept tracking the unknown movement, their lines tightening, their positions adjusting like they knew exactly where the SEALs were. Her chest tightened. This wasn't random. Someone had planned this. Then the radio lit up again. Observation Tower 1, this is SEAL Team Alpha. We're seeing movement to our north. Can you confirm? Affirmative, Alpha. I count at least 60 unidentified personnel moving toward your location. You are not authorized for any opposing force today. Recommend immediate defensive positioning. Morrison's voice came back steady but edged with the tension of a man reading the situation in real time. Tower 1, we were briefed for navigation drills, no contact scenarios. Are you sure about that number? I'm sure, she said quietly. They're closing fast. The SEAL's next words were clipped. Copy that, we're setting a perimeter. The jungle, which had always seemed alive, now felt predatory. Chief Martinez climbed the tower, 2 steps at a time, his boots slipping on metal slick with humidity. Report. She turned her scope toward the far ridge. Groups converging, 3 elements all moving tactically. This isn't lost training personnel, Chief. Then what the hell is it? I don't know, she admitted, but they're armed. The chief's jaw tightened. We need confirmation before we escalate this. They didn't get it. Because at that moment, the sharp crack of gunfire ripped through the jungle. The first burst came from the east, short, controlled, professional, not blanks, real rounds, then more. Muzzle flashes flickered between trees like angry fireflies. The chief swore, Jesus, they're engaging. Observation Tower 1 to base operations, Martinez said into the radio, her voice steady despite the chaos building below. We have confirmed hostile fire in training sectors. Repeat, hostile fire, live ammunition. Request immediate lockdown and response. Copy Tower 1. All available security personnel deploying. Maintain overwatch. Through her scope, she saw Morrison's SEAL team react instantly, splitting into fire teams, moving with trained precision. Their drills were over. Their war instincts had taken over. Observation Tower 1, this is SEAL Team Alpha, Morrison called through the radio, voice taut but composed. We're taking fire from multiple directions, requesting overwatch support and movement guidance. Copy Alpha, I have visual. She swung her scope to their position, identified the muzzle flashes, calculated angles, and keyed the mic. Alpha, suppress fire at 290 degrees. Two enemy positions behind the fallen log near the ridge. They're flanking you from the northwest. Move 100 meters east to cover. Roger that, moving. Chief Martinez stared at her, half in disbelief. You just called coordinates like you've done this before. She didn't look up. I have. The base was now fully awake, alarms blaring, sirens wailing through the rain-damp jungle. Security units advanced in waves, while medics waited near the airstrip, unsure if they'd be needed for drills or war. Then Morrison's voice cut through again. Observation Tower 1, we're pinned down. Multiple shooters elevated positions. Need covering fire. Understood, she said, and then she did something that froze the chief in place. She reached into the equipment locker and pulled out her rifle. Martinez, what are you doing? Providing cover, she said simply, loading a magazine with fluid precision. That's not your role. Neither was saving a man last month. She stepped to the railing, took a knee, and lined up through the scope. Her breathing slowed, her pulse quieted. Everything else, the rain, the alarms, the shouting, disappeared. Through the lens, she saw them, two figures moving between trees, unaware that someone was watching from 40 feet above with the calm of death itself. One squeeze. One exhale. The first hostile dropped. Another adjusted, scanning for the shot. Too late. Second one down. The SEAL team began moving, covering each other's flanks under her invisible guidance. Observation Tower 1, perfect shot, Morrison's voice came through. Keep eyes north. Already on it. Her shots weren't hurried. They were surgical, clean, measured, almost merciful. Each one bought seconds, seconds that saved lives. Within 20 minutes, the chaos began to shift. Security forces converged. The unknown attackers, whoever they were, started to withdraw. The jungle swallowed them back, leaving only the smell of wet soil and spent gunpowder. Observation Tower 1 to base operations. Hostile contact neutralized. Area secure. The chief stared at her in silence. Then quietly, that was beyond anything I've seen. Martinez lowered her rifle and locked the chamber open. Training manuals, Chief. They cover more than people think. He shook his head slowly. No manual teaches you to shoot like that. When the debrief began hours later, the questions came fast. Who were they? How did they breach the perimeter? Why did an observer provide sniper-level overwatch that turned the tide of the engagement? No one had answers except her, and she wasn't giving them. Later that night, she sat in her quarters, wiping down the rifle she wasn't supposed to have used. Outside, the rain began again, soft, rhythmic, cleansing. She whispered to the weapon like an old friend, "You weren't supposed to see the light again." From the doorway, Chief Martinez watched quietly before speaking. "You saved them." She looked up, and in doing that, I gave myself away. He nodded slowly. "I don't know who you really are, specialist, but I'm starting to think you weren't always an observer." Her voice was barely a breath. "No, Chief, I was." The storm outside grew louder, lightning flashing across the jungle, and for the first time, Fort Sherman's secret guardian realized that her silence had kept her safe, but not hidden forever. Because the jungle had a way of exposing what even files couldn't. Why do the heroes of one battle become the suspects of the next? Morning came late to Fort Sherman. The rain had left behind a fog so thick it felt like the jungle was trying to erase what happened the night before. The smell of gunpowder still clung to the air, mixing with the damp earth. Helicopters circled the perimeter. Security patrols combed the forest edge. Specialist Martinez sat on a metal bench outside the command building, her hair still wet. her uniform streaked with mud she hadn't bothered to wash off. Around her, the base buzzed with controlled chaos, technicians replacing broken antennas, medics moving stretchers, officers snapping orders that sounded confident only from a distance. She waited, not for orders, for judgment. The door opened. Chief Martinez stepped out, followed by a man she didn't recognize, dark suit, short hair, the kind of posture that didn't belong in the jungle. He was from somewhere higher, somewhere colder. "Specialist," the chief said, his tone neutral, "this is Agent Nash. He's here from Command Intelligence." The agent nodded politely but didn't smile. "We'll need a few minutes, Chief." Ramirez hesitated, then left them alone. The agent's voice was calm, almost too calm. "You fired 8 rounds last night, all confirmed hits. You coordinated real-time movements for a SEAL team under live fire. None of that aligns with your listed training. Care to explain?" She met his gaze evenly. "I acted because there was no one else in position to do it." "Not what I asked." She didn't answer. He sighed and took a small device from his pocket, a data key. "You know what this is?" She glanced at it. "Encrypted service log." "Good, then you know I already have your history." A long silence hung between them. Then he said quietly, "You were with Joint Special Operations Group 4, classified deployments, no official commendations, no disciplinary record either, just a blank space where a person should be." Martinez looked away. The jungle shimmered with heat beyond the fog, as if hiding behind a veil. "I left that life behind," she said. "Apparently it didn't leave you." He leaned closer, voice low. "You broke chain of command twice in 2 months. First time you saved a man's life. Second time you saved an entire team. Command, impressed and nervous. They want to know what you'll do next." "What I'll do." He slipped the key back into his pocket. "You have a gift, Specialist, but gifts like yours come with gravity. You can't just disappear into observation duty. The people upstairs are asking if you're wasted here." She didn't move. "I'm exactly where I belong." Nash studied her a moment longer, then nodded. "Maybe, but if something like last night happens again, they'll stop calling you Specialist Martinez." He started walking away, then paused. "They'll call you what you used to be." She watched him leave, the words settling heavy in her chest. When the chief returned, she was still staring at the jungle. "What did he want?" he asked. "To remind me who I was," she said quietly. He sighed. "You know they're going to keep digging." "I know. And you're not going to tell me what really happened out there before Fort Sherman, are you?" She shook her head. "You wouldn't sleep well if I did." He smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised what I can sleep through." She almost smiled back, almost. That night the base held a memorial for the 2 soldiers lost during the firefight, 1 SEAL, 1 local ranger. The mess hall was silent except for rain against tin roofing. Morrison stood beside the flag-draped tables, his face carved in stone. When it was over, he walked to the back of the room where Martinez stood alone. "They said you used to be something else," he murmured. "People say a lot of things." "Maybe, but I watched you work that scope. That wasn't instinct, that was memory." She looked up at him, her eyes unreadable. "Some memories shoot back, petty officer." He didn't press further. He just nodded, not the salute of rank but of understanding. Outside, thunder rolled again. The storm season was only beginning. Days turned to weeks, but the jungle didn't forget. Security teams found traces of the infiltrators, foreign-made ammunition, encrypted radios, ration packs with no markings. Whoever they were, they'd trained like professionals. And they weren't done. Martinez noticed it first, subtle distortions on the motion sensors, interference on frequencies no one used. She logged everything, sent the reports up the chain. Most were ignored. Until one night a patrol vanished. 3 soldiers, gone, no gunfire, no signal, just silence. Command declared it an accident, lost in the terrain, but Martinez knew better. She'd seen this pattern before, the slow bleed before the ambush. She walked into Chief Martinez's office, dropped a folder on his desk. "You need to read this." He frowned, opening it. Inside were handwritten notes, radio timestamps, thermal images marked with circles. "You've been tracking them. They've been watching us." He looked at her, uneasy. "You think they're coming back?" She nodded. "And next time they won't just test the fence." The chief leaned back, rubbing his temples. "If I escalate this without proof, Command will call it paranoia. Then I'll get proof." "How?" She looked toward the jungle. "By going where they went. Alone. Always." He hesitated, then gave a small, resigned nod. "You step 1 foot outside that perimeter, you're off the record." "I've been off the record most of my life." That night the jungle swallowed her whole. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of wet leaves and diesel. Every sound, every frog, every insect became a possible threat. She moved low, steady, silent. Not a trainee now, not an observer. Through her night scope, faint heat signatures flickered ahead, movement where none should be. She advanced until she saw them clearly. 4 men unloading crates near a half-collapsed ruin. Equipment. Comms. Then she heard it, a language she hadn't heard in years. The accent was foreign, familiar. Her stomach tightened. She raised her small camera, took photos, clear, undeniable proof. But then one of the men turned suddenly, scanning the darkness. His flashlight swept across the trees, stopped inches from her face. Martinez didn't breathe. The beam lingered, then drifted away. She waited until the voices faded before retreating, step by silent step, back toward the base. By dawn she had the evidence. Chief Martinez met her at the gate, eyes wide when he saw her state, soaked, mud-covered, exhausted. "You weren't supposed to make it that far alone." "I wasn't supposed to come back either," she said, handing him the camera. "But they're here. Whoever attacked us, they're staging again." He looked through the photos, his face hardening with every image. "I'll take this to Command." She shook her head. "No, you take it to him." "Him who?" "Colonel Patterson. He's the only one who will understand what this means." The chief studied her for a long moment. "You trust him?" "I used to," she said softly, "and that's the problem." When Patterson arrived 2 days later, Fort Sherman changed. He wasn't the kind of man who needed to raise his voice. His presence did the talking. The soldiers straightened, the officers shut up. And when he saw Martinez, something flickered behind his eyes, not surprise, not anger, something quieter. Regret. "You were supposed to be out," he said quietly. "I was," she replied. "The jungle had other plans." He walked beside her toward the tower. "Those men you photographed, we've seen their kind before. Contracted, deniable, moving supplies for groups that don't exist on paper. You stumbled into a shadow war." "I didn't stumble," she said. "I followed footprints." Patterson looked at her. "You realize this puts you right back where we pulled you from." She met his gaze. "Maybe that's where I'm meant to be." He sighed. "Careful what you wish for, Martinez. The last time you said that, we buried half your unit." She looked away, jaw tight. "Then maybe this time I finish what's left." That night she stood again in her tower. The jungle below glowed faintly in the moonlight, calm on the surface, treacherous underneath. Every leaf whispered a warning she already knew. Peace was temporary. Silence was borrowed time. She whispered to herself, barely audible over the hum of insects. Sometimes the past doesn't knock, it kicks the door back open. And somewhere deep in the trees, a light flickered, a signal meant for no one in particular, but she saw it. And she knew. The next storm wasn't coming. It was already here. Why do some wars find you even after you've stopped fighting them? The night was too quiet again. That was the first sign. Martinez sat in the observation tower. the wind barely moving the jungle canopy. The moon was half hidden behind clouds, turning everything silver and black. She'd been scanning the same sectors for hours, eyes half-focused, mind whispering through old memories she wished would stay buried. Then it happened. A single flash of light, far beyond the outer perimeter. Then another. Rhythmic, patterned. Morse. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. Her pulse slowed instead of quickened. Whoever was sending that signal knew she'd see it. She reached for the radio. Base operations, this is Tower 1. I'm observing coded light signals east-northeast, approximately 2 clicks beyond the river line. Possible distress. The reply came, casual, half asleep. Probably locals again, specialist. We've had kids flashing lights for weeks. She watched the pattern repeat, perfect timing, perfect spacing. No child could do that. Negative control, she said quietly. This is professional signaling. Silence, then a reluctant, copy that Tower 1, logging it, we'll send a patrol at dawn. She stared at the horizon another minute, then muttered, there won't be a dawn if you wait. The jungle shifted. A breeze carried the faintest smell of oil and cordite. She lifted her scope and froze. Movement. Dozens. Shapes crawling through the mist, low and coordinated. She didn't need magnification to know what they were carrying. Rifles, heavy packs, intent. She switched frequencies. Base, this is Tower 1, we have inbound hostiles, multiple, estimated strength. A burst of static cut her off. The signal jammed. Damn it. She flipped to the emergency backup, the one she wasn't supposed to use. Command net, this is Tower 1, priority alert, perimeter breach, east sectors compromised. No answer, just static and faint background noise like whispers drowning in a storm. She leaned over the railing and shouted down, Chief. From below, a guard looked up. What is it? Incoming. The next second, the jungle exploded. Mortar fire tore through the tree line, lighting up the night in flashes of white-orange flame. The blast shockwave hit the tower, rattling the frame like a tin skeleton. Alarms wailed. Men shouted. The base that had seemed untouchable now looked fragile under fire. Martinez dropped to a crouch, pulling her headset tight. Tower 1 to all units, we are under attack. This is not a drill. Bullets tore through the foliage, cracking the air around her. She crawled to the opposite side, scanning through the scope. Enemy fighters surged forward, black uniforms, unmarked. No flags, no insignia, just ghosts with guns. Down below, Chief Ramirez sprinted through the chaos, rallying whoever was close enough to hear. Defensive positions. Move, move, move. He looked up once and shouted, Martinez, get down from there. She didn't. She had the highest ground and the clearest shot. Her rifle was already in her hands. She chambered a round, lined up on a muzzle flash and exhaled. One shot, then another, clean, controlled. Through the radio she caught fragments, Morrison's voice cutting through static. We're hit, east perimeter down, multiple wounded. We need overwatch now. I've got you, she whispered, though no one could hear it but the rain starting to fall. Her shots guided them. Every tracer from her rifle was a signal, this way, not that way. Then another blast hit closer. The tower groaned, metal screeched. Chief Ramirez looked up again, horror spreading on his face. Martinez, the tower. Too late. The next shell struck the base of the structure. The world tilted. Metal screamed as the tower collapsed, crashing into the mud below. For a moment there was only ringing, a high, endless tone. Then darkness. When she came to, the air was thick with smoke. Her vision blurred, ears still whistling. She was half buried in debris, the twisted remains of the tower pinning her legs. Pain flared sharp, but she stayed silent, focusing on breath. In, out. Voices shouted in the distance, foreign, close. She pulled herself free inch by inch, bit back a scream as her knee twisted wrong. She crawled to a fallen guard's rifle, checked the chamber, still loaded. She pressed her back to the wreckage, heart pounding in rhythm with the gunfire. Through the haze, she saw silhouettes moving through the smoke, clearing the area methodically, searching. They were inside the base. She aimed, waited. Two shapes came into view. One fell before the other realized what happened. The second dropped a heartbeat later. She moved, crawling toward the comms bunker. The door was half open, lights flickering. Inside, Chief Ramirez and Morrison were trying to power up emergency communications. When they saw her, both froze, dirt-covered, blood running down her temple, eyes sharp. "Jesus, you're alive," Morrison said. "Mostly," she replied, limping inside. "You need backup frequencies." Ramirez gestured helplessly. "Everything's jammed." She knelt, pushing him aside gently. Her fingers moved fast across the console, rewiring, rerouting, bypassing locks she wasn't supposed to know existed. Within seconds, the static cleared, replaced by an open channel. "This is Fort Sherman to all nearby units. We are under active assault by unknown forces. Request immediate reinforcement, grid coordinates." The radio sparked again, static. Then a familiar voice broke through, deep, calm, commanding. "Tower 1, Martinez, that you?" "Colonel Patterson." She almost smiled. "You took your time, sir." "Already diverting 2 platoons your way. ETA 20 minutes. Hold your ground." 20 minutes might be a lifetime," she said quietly. "Then make it count." She clicked off the radio, looked at the chief and Morrison. "You heard the man. Let's make them earn it." Outside, the firefight raged. Tracers cut across the mist. Mortars thumped. The jungle glowed with the pulse of war. Martinez took a defensive position by the window, her rifle steady. Morrison crouched beside her, reloading. "You ever think you'd end up back here?" he asked, almost shouting over the gunfire. She smirked faintly. "No, but apparently the universe didn't get the memo." Ramirez chuckled grimly, tossing her a fresh magazine. "Remind me never to doubt your paranoia again." For the next 15 minutes, they held the line, 3 people against waves. Martinez called out targets with eerie calm, every shot a sentence, every reload a comma. Her mind moved faster than fear. Then silence. The jungle stopped firing back. Smoke drifted low, thick as breath. Morrison looked up, puzzled. "You think they pulled back?" Martinez's eyes narrowed. "No, they're repositioning." Her instincts were right. A moment later, a new sound rose, the low whine of drones overhead. Small, fast, deadly. "Down," she yelled. Explosions ripped through the compound, scattering debris and bodies alike. The bunker door blew inward. They dove for cover. When she looked up again, the chief was bleeding from the shoulder. Morrison was dragging him behind a crate. She reached for her rifle, empty. Only 1 magazine left. She switched frequencies. "Command, this is Sherman. We need those reinforcements now." Static again, then Patterson's voice. "We're 2 clicks out. Hold your position." She looked at the men beside her, exhausted, wounded, cornered. Then she stood. "What are you doing?" Morrison demanded. "Buying time," she said. "Martinez." But she was already moving, slipping out through the smoke into the open yard. She limped toward the fallen tower's remains, scavenging a sniper rifle from the wreckage. The scope cracked, but still usable. She climbed onto the half-collapsed frame, balancing herself despite the pain. Through the broken lens, she saw the attackers regrouping on the ridge, setting up to finish the job. She exhaled slowly. Not today. The first shot tore through their point man. The second scattered the rest. The third silenced a machine gun nest before it could fire. Each pull of the trigger was rhythm, muscle memory, redemption. Then faintly she heard it, the thunder of approaching helicopters. Reinforcements. She lowered the rifle, breathing hard. The battle was turning. Below, soldiers poured into the base, engaging the remaining hostiles. Within minutes, the jungle swallowed the fight again. When it was over, Martinez sat in the mud, rain washing blood from her face. Chief Ramirez limped over, shoulder bandaged. "You held them," he said quietly. "They held themselves," she corrected. "I just reminded them how." Morrison crouched beside her. "You realize you just saved half the base, right?" She shook her head. "No, I just ran out of places to hide." They all sat there in the rain, too tired to move. The sky lightened slowly, as if unsure the sun was allowed to rise on this place again. Patterson approached, helmet under his arm, face unreadable. "You disobeyed direct orders, broke protocol, again." She didn't answer. He looked at the smoking ruins of the tower, then back at her. "And because you did, these men are alive." She met his eyes, voice steady. "You knew they'd come, didn't you?" He exhaled. "We had intel, didn't think they'd hit this hard this soon." "So you sent me here to watch for them." He didn't deny it. Her jaw tightened. "You turned my exile into surveillance." "I turned your silence into protection," he said quietly, "and it worked." She looked away, rain dripping from her lashes. "For now." Patterson nodded once, the weight of command settling back onto his shoulders. "Clean up the base. We'll talk about next steps when the dead are counted." When he left, Martinez stayed where she was, staring at the jungle that refused to stop breathing. In the distance, smoke rose like prayer. She whispered, half to herself, half to the ghosts still out there. "Peace isn't something you win. It's something you keep defending every damn day." And as the rain washed the blood from the earth, she knew the fight wasn't over. It had only shifted deeper into the trees and into her. Why is it always the same silence after victory? The kind that sounds more like warning than peace. 2 days after the assault, Fort Sherman looked like it had survived a hurricane made of lead. The air reeked of burned fuel and wet clay. Half the perimeter fence hung in ribbons. Helmets lay upside down in puddles. Every breath came with the taste of cordite and smoke. Martinez moved through it like a ghost in daylight. Bandaged knee, cracked ribs, but no rest. She helped medics lift stretchers, carried ammo crates, rebuilt the broken. The others watched her, the quiet observer who had turned the battle by herself. Some saluted. Most just stared. Chief Ramirez limped beside her, his arm in a sling. "Command says we're lucky," he muttered. Funny word for burying 7 names. She didn't answer. Behind them, Morrison barked orders to his men, stripped down to t-shirts, caked with grime, still running security checks along the tree line. No one trusted the jungle anymore. Then the choppers came. Low, heavy, purposeful. Colonel Patterson stepped out first, flanked by officers in gray fatigues carrying sealed cases. He didn't bother with pleasantries. Specialist Martinez, Chief Ramirez, inside now. In the command tent, maps sprawled across tables, dotted with red pins that marked more than one attack. Patterson pointed to them. 3 bases hit in the last month, all along this jungle belt, all using the same tactics you saw here. Ramirez frowned. "So it wasn't just us." "No," Patterson's tone hardened. "And whoever they are, they're good. Too good." Satellite recon caught heat signatures vanishing into the interior, deeper than any supply route should go. He looked at Martinez. "We need eyes on that interior, a recon team." She understood the look behind his words. "And you want me to lead it?" "You're the only one who's navigated that terrain and lived to brief it," Patterson said. "We go in quiet, 3 days, minimal contact." "Minimal contact," she repeated softly. "That's what you called Kandahar." The tent fell silent. Only the map rustled in the fan's slow rotation. Patterson's eyes softened for the first time. "You don't owe me another mission, Martinez, but those men out there, they need someone who knows what's coming." She exhaled slowly. Who's on the team? Morrison, 1 comms tech, 2 rangers, and you. Ramirez started to object. Sir, she's injured. She's ready, Patterson cut in. Then quieter to her, you've always been ready, even when you hated it. She gave a faint, humorless smile. 3 days in and out. Good, wheels up at dawn. That night she sat alone in the ruined tower's shadow. The jungle whispered around her, wet leaves glinting under moonlight. Her rifle leaned beside her leg, clean but still smelling of war. Morrison approached quietly, holding 2 metal cups of instant coffee. He offered one for luck. She accepted it, never believed in luck. He sat beside her, watching the tree line. Then what keeps you alive out there? She took a sip, grimaced at the bitterness. Habit. He chuckled softly. Fair. A pause, then he asked the question she'd been expecting. Why'd you leave Special Ops? She didn't answer right away. The insects filled the silence for her. Finally she said, because one night we were sent to extract civilians from a crossfire zone. We did, but not all of them. She looked down at her hands. I followed orders. They cost lives. I decided silence was safer for everyone. Morrison didn't say anything. He just nodded, understanding in his eyes. When he left, she whispered to the jungle, let's see if you still remember me. Dawn came pale and slow. The recon chopper skimmed above the canopy, blades slicing the fog. Martinez sat by the open door, headset pressed against her ear, eyes scanning the endless green below. The jungle looked calm from above, like a secret keeping itself. Touchdown in 2, the pilot called. They landed on a narrow clearing near the old river route. The team disembarked, weapons ready, boots sinking into soft soil. Morrison looked around. Feels like we're walking into a mouth. Martinez adjusted her rifle, then keep it from closing. They moved single file into the foliage. Humidity wrapped around them like a second skin. Every sound felt amplified, a twig snap, a breath, a heartbeat. For the first hour, nothing. Then, faint radio interference crackled in their earpieces. Comms glitching again, the tech muttered. Martinez stopped. No, that's deliberate jamming, someone's nearby. They crouched low. Ahead the river bend shimmered through mist. On the far bank, half hidden by vines, stood a structure that shouldn't exist, concrete walls, antennas, and a faint hum of generators. Morrison whispered, forward base. She nodded, ours once, not anymore. They crept closer until they could see figures, armed men unloading crates stamped in foreign script. One box cracked open, revealing weapons marked with a logo she recognized instantly. Her pulse dropped. Those are NATO issue, she murmured. Morrison frowned. You saying this is stolen or sold? She raised her camera, took a series of photos. Each click sounded louder than it should. One guard turned, listening. Move, she hissed. They backed into cover, hearts thudding, but the guard didn't pursue. He shouted something in that same rough accent she'd heard weeks ago. Then gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through leaves. The jungle exploded into motion. Contact east flank, Morrison yelled. They returned fire, controlled bursts. The Rangers set up suppressing shots, while the comms tech tried to re-establish the link. Signals jammed, he shouted. Martinez glanced at the ridge above the base, a perfect overwatch position. I'm taking high ground, she said. Morrison grabbed her arm. You can't make that climb on that leg. Watch me. She broke from cover, sprinting through the undergrowth, slipping once, catching herself. Bullets hissed past her ears. She reached the ridge, dropped to a prone position, and lined up her scope. From there, the battle unfolded like a pattern she'd seen 100 times. She called down directions through hand signals. Each enemy muzzle flash became a marker, each correction a rescue. Within minutes, the firefight slowed. Then suddenly, Everything went silent again. No movement, no sound. Just the pulse in her ears. Morrison's voice came through faintly. "They're pulling back." But Martinez didn't relax. Her eyes stayed on the structure. The men hadn't fled. They'd retreated inside. "They're not leaving," she whispered. "They're protecting something." She climbed down carefully, meeting the team near the tree line. "We move in," she said. "Wait," Morrison argued. "We need clearance." "No time. Reinforcements will vanish if we wait." They breached the facility through a half-open loading gate. Inside, empty corridors, damp concrete, cables snaking along the floor, the hum of machinery deeper in. Then they found it, a control room, lit by faint blue monitors displaying encrypted maps of several jungle bases, including Fort Sherman. Underneath the coordinates, Phase 2. Morrison stared. They were planning another attack. "Not just here," Martinez said, scrolling through. 3 more sites, simultaneous strikes." The comms tech finally got a faint uplink. "Signal's weak, but I can send data bursts." "Do it," she ordered. "Transmit everything." The moment the upload started, alarms blared. Red lights pulsed through the hall. "They know we're in." Martinez extraction route. She checked the map. South exit through the flood tunnels. They ran, boots splashing through water. Voices shouted behind them, closer each second. As they reached daylight, Morrison tossed a grenade down the tunnel. The blast sealed the way behind them. They stumbled into open air, gasping. The river glistened below, their extraction chopper already descending. "Move," she shouted. The team piled in. The pilot hauled the bird skyward just as tracer fire streaked past. As the base shrank beneath them, Martinez looked down, saw figures emerging from the jungle, still shooting, still chasing ghosts. Morrison dropped into the seat beside her, panting. "Please tell me we got the data." The comms tech nodded weakly, all of it sent to command. Martinez leaned back, eyes on the burning base below. Her voice was calm. "Then at least they'll know what's coming." The chopper banked toward the horizon. The jungle rolled beneath them, endless and alive. Patterson's voice crackled through the headset. "Team Bravo, confirmed transmission." "Confirmed, sir," she said. A pause, then, "Good work, Martinez. But that data, it's worse than we thought. Fort Sherman wasn't the target, it was the test." Her blood went cold. "Then what's the objective?" Static answered. Then only one word came through: mainland. The transmission cut out. She stared at the dark line of coast ahead, heart heavy with the truth she already knew. The jungle hadn't been her battlefield. It had been their rehearsal. Why does every return from the jungle feel less like coming home and more like stepping back into another battlefield? The helicopter's rotors slowed, cutting the roar down to a heavy heartbeat. Fort Sherman came into view, scarred, blackened, still smelling of smoke and fuel. The once green perimeter now looked like a skeleton. They'd left as 5. Returned as 4. Morrison climbed out first, his uniform streaked with mud and blood. The comms tech followed, clutching the encrypted drive like a lifeline. Martinez lingered in the doorway, eyes on the horizon. The jungle stretched behind them, glistening under weak sunlight, alive but unforgiving. She stepped down into the mud. Each footfall echoed heavier than the last. Colonel Patterson was waiting. His face said he'd already read the report, or at least enough of it to age him another decade overnight. "Inside," he said, "no congratulations, no salute, just the quiet tone of a man already drowning in worse news." They walked to the command tent. The air was thick with exhaustion and cigarette smoke. Screens showed satellite images, coastal routes, port cities, civilian grids. Patterson pointed at one screen. "This is why you were sent out there." Martinez stared. Red dots blinked along the coastline, ports, fuel depots, training centers. They're planning synchronized strikes, Patterson said. Sabotage, not invasion. Infrastructure, communications, fuel lines, enough to cripple response times before anyone even calls it war. Morrison crossed his arms. How many operatives are we talking? Patterson exhaled. Enough to vanish inside any crowd. These aren't soldiers, they're ghosts with passports. The tent went quiet. Only the hum of the generator filled the pause. Martinez leaned against the table, her voice low. And command's plan. Containment, Patterson said. Coordinated task force across branches. But they need a forward unit, someone who knows the enemy's rhythm. He looked at her when he said it. No, she said instantly. Patterson didn't flinch. You know them better than anyone. You've fought them before. I buried enough of my own the last time I did that. He walked closer, lowering his voice. You didn't bury them, you carried them, that's the difference. Martinez's eyes flashed. Don't use ghosts as leverage. Then use the living, Patterson shot back, pointing at the wounded outside. They're breathing because you refuse to stay silent. If you step back now, you're leaving them blind again. The tent held its breath. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. She finally said quietly, You think one woman can stop a war? Patterson's gaze softened. No, but one woman can stop it from starting the wrong way. Morrison broke the silence. If she goes, I go. Patterson turned to him. This isn't a volunteer operation, petty officer. It is for me, Morrison replied, his voice firm. You want someone to follow her lead. You'll need someone who's already seen her fight. Patterson looked between them, the stubborn officer and the silent sniper. Then he nodded slowly. You'll both get your wish. Briefing at 400. You move at dawn. He started to leave, then stopped at the doorway. You said once that silence saves lives, Martinez. Maybe this time it needs to speak. When he was gone, the tent felt emptier than before. Morrison leaned on the table beside her. You're really doing this again. She stared at the map, at the blinking red dots marking lives that didn't know how close they were to losing everything. I'm not doing it for the uniform, she said. I'm doing it so someone else doesn't have to. Hours later, the base slept in uneasy quiet. Martinez sat alone in the remnants of her observation tower, rebuilt halfway, still skeletal. The moonlight painted her face silver, the rifle beside her knee. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a photo, old, creased, edges burned. 5 people in desert fatigues. 4 smiling. 1 her, staring at the camera like she already knew how it would end. She ran her thumb over the faces. You tell me not to go, she whispered, which is exactly why I will. The jungle answered with nothing but the sound of rain. At dawn, the new task force assembled, black uniforms, unmarked gear, the smell of coffee and adrenaline mixing in the humid air. Morrison checked his weapon, adjusting his headset. Ramirez stood nearby, arm still in a sling, watching her. You ever get tired of saving people who don't deserve you? He asked. She smiled faintly. Every day. He chuckled, then his tone softened. For what it's worth, if anyone can pull this off, it's you. She nodded once. Take care of the base, Chief. He gave her a mock salute. Only if you promise to come back. She didn't promise. Patterson briefed them personally. Multiple teams will deploy along the coast. Your unit will move first, reconnaissance and target identification. Confirm cells, report movements. No engagement unless unavoidable. Define unavoidable, Morrison muttered. Patterson ignored it. Your entry point will be here. He pointed to a coastal outpost, a narrow stretch of river meeting the sea. Intelligence indicates a weapons transfer within 48 hours. That's your window. Martinez studied the map. We'll need satellite comms. You'll have them, and Martinez, Patterson's voice dropped. If you find out who's funding this, you tell me before anyone else. She frowned. You think it's internal? He didn't answer. That was answer enough. By nightfall, they were airborne again, 4 figures against the infinite black. The helicopter's interior glowed dim red. No one spoke. Morrison sat across from her, head tilted back, eyes closed, pretending to rest. She checked her rifle, then the sidearm, then her small encrypted comm pad. Habit, discipline, distraction. Through the open door, the sea shimmered below, black as spilled ink. The pilot's voice came through the headset. 10 minutes to drop. She nodded, pulling her hood tighter. When they finally jumped, the water hit like ice. Silent, crushing. The team surfaced in unison, cutting through waves toward the dark shore. They crawled onto the sand, breathing in the heavy salt air. Ahead, the faint glow of lights from a cluster of buildings by the docks. Movement at the pier, Morrison whispered, adjusting his scope. Martinez followed his line of sight. Trucks, crates, men in mismatched uniforms. But what froze her wasn't them. It was the flag half hidden under a tarp, faintly visible in the moonlight. American markings. Her throat went dry. Morrison, those aren't foreign crates. He frowned. What do you mean? She zoomed in. Serial numbers, logistics stamps. Those are U.S. supply shipments. Morrison's face hardened. You're saying our own weapons are being rerouted? She nodded slowly. No wonder the enemy's equipped like us. They are us, or someone selling to them. The realization hit like a bullet. This wasn't infiltration from outside. It was infection from within. Command not going to like this, Morrison muttered. They're not supposed to, she said quietly. We were never meant to find this. Suddenly, voices shouted from the pier. Flashlights swept the water line. They spotted something, Morrison said. Fall back to the tree line, she ordered. They slipped into the undergrowth as engines roared. Trucks began moving. The shipment, the stolen cargo, was rolling out. Martinez raised her comms unit. Command, this is Field Unit 1. We have confirmation of internal weapons diversion. Repeat, internal. Request immediate lockdown on. Static. Then faintly, Martinez, this is Command, abort transmission, you're not clear. The signal cut entirely. Morrison's face darkened. They're jamming us again. She stared at the blinking comm light. No, that came from inside our own channel. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of diesel and sea salt. Trucks rumbled inland, carrying proof of betrayal into the trees. She whispered almost to herself, this isn't just a mission anymore, it's a cover-up. Morrison looked at her. So what do we do now? Martinez chambered her rifle, eyes on the departing convoy. What we always do, she said quietly, finish what someone else started. As they disappeared into the jungle again, shadows chasing ghosts, the dawn broke behind them, soft and red. And somewhere, across the radio silence, Command pretended not to hear them calling. But the world would. Because sometimes, the people who walk away from the system are the ones still holding it together by sheer will. And for the first time in years, Martinez wasn't hiding from her past. She was walking straight into it. Why does the truth always arrive too late and always demand more than it should? The jungle at dawn was a cathedral of mist and memory. Every breath carried the scent of wet soil, diesel and gunmetal. The stolen convoy moved through the river road like a black vein cutting through green. Martinez and her small team trailed it from the ridge, silent, invisible, shadows moving through fog. Morrison crawled beside her, eyes on his scope. 3 trucks, armed escort, looks like 15, maybe 20 personnel. She nodded, calculating. They're moving heavy, too organized for mercenaries. Then who the hell are they? She didn't answer, not yet. Down below, one of the guards shouted, slapping the side of a truck. The tarps shifted, exposing crates of ammunition and sealed containers marked with the insignia she had once served under. U.S. Army supply line. Reallocated. Resold. Her pulse slowed, not from fear, but from something colder, recognition. Morrison whispered, "Command's got to know about this." "Command is this," she said softly. He looked at her sharply. "You think Patterson?" She didn't finish the thought. Not Patterson, someone above him, someone using Fort Sherman as the testing ground for distribution. The realization hit Morrison like a punch. "You mean, we weren't attacked by an enemy, we were attacked by our own supply chain. By people who needed the chaos to hide their thefts," she said. "And now they're moving the last shipment out before anyone asks why." He clenched his jaw. "We stopped them here." She scanned the convoy's route. A narrow bridge lay ahead, one way across the river. "That's our choke point." He frowned. "That bridge won't survive long under fire." "It doesn't have to," she said. "Just long enough to make sure they don't." The team moved fast. 2 Rangers planted charges along the bridge pylons, wires glinting under mud. The comms tech set a short-range jammer, a bubble of silence that would last 5 minutes, no more. Martinez positioned herself above the ridge, lying flat, eyes steady through the cracked sniper scope that had never failed her. Morrison crouched beside her. "If we pull this off, Command's going to come down on us hard." She smiled faintly. "Command won't find what's left." The rumble of engines grew louder. The first truck rolled onto the bridge. Martinez exhaled. "Wait for it." The second followed. Then the third. The escort vehicle behind them, armored heavy. She whispered, "Now." The Rangers detonated the first charge. The explosion tore through the bridge supports, fire blooming into the morning mist. The first truck swerved, jackknifing sideways, slamming into the second. Soldiers scattered, shouting. Martinez's first shot cracked through the chaos, clean and final. One guard down, then another. Morrison opened fire beside her, each burst precise. The convoy erupted into confusion. No radio contact, no command, just panic. One of the escort vehicles tried to reverse, but the rear charge blew, sealing them in. "Martinez, they're pinned," Morrison shouted. "Hold fire, we need proof." She crawled down the ridge, mud streaking her sleeves. Through smoke and gunfire, she reached the first overturned truck. The crates inside had split open, revealing not just ammo but documents. Manifest, signatures. Official authorization, stamps from Command Logistics Division. It wasn't a rogue operation, it was sanctioned. She felt the weight of it like lead in her lungs. A voice shouted behind her, "Morrison, contact, more hostiles coming from the north. Reinforcements fast, too many." She grabbed a handful of files and slammed the crate shut. "We've got what we need, fall back." They sprinted toward the ridge as bullets ripped through leaves. The Rangers covered the retreat, firing blind bursts to slow pursuit. Halfway up, one of them went down, a sharp cry, then silence. Martinez turned, started toward him, but Morrison grabbed her arm. "He's gone, move." She hesitated, then nodded, forcing herself forward. When they reached the top, the sound of rotor blades cut through the gunfire. An incoming helicopter. Not theirs. Black, unmarked. Morrison cursed. "That's not extraction." "No," she said, "that's cleanup." The helicopter hovered over the burning convoy, side gunners opening fire indiscriminately, eliminating every survivor, every witness. They weren't rescuing anyone, they were erasing evidence. Martinez lifted her scope, saw the insignia stenciled faintly under the rotor, a classified division she'd only heard whispered about during her old assignments. "Internal. Buried deep." She whispered, "They're burning their own tracks." Morrison's voice broke through the roar. "Then we get out before they burn us too." They moved, diving into the tree line just as the chopper fired rockets into the wreckage. The blast waved through them to the ground. Debris rained down, fire lighting up the sky. When she finally looked back, the bridge was gone, and so was every trace of the operation. Hours later, they regrouped in an abandoned ranger outpost. The sun was sinking. The jungle smelled like ash and betrayal. Morrison sat against the wall, hands trembling as he reloaded his sidearm. "We've got no comms, no backup, and no extraction window. What's the play, Martinez?" She laid the salvaged documents on the floor, wet, half-burned but readable. "This," she said, "we carry this out, someone has to see it." "Patterson." She hesitated. "If he's clean." "And if he's not?" "Then it goes higher." He laughed bitterly. "Higher's where it started." She looked at him. The same tired understanding between two people who'd outlived too many orders. "Then it goes public." He nodded slowly. "You think the world will believe us?" "They don't have to," she said. "They just have to see enough to ask the right questions." By nightfall, they were moving again, low, fast, silent. The jungle stretched ahead, glowing faintly in the moonlight. At the river crossing, they found a small rescue team waiting, men in familiar gear, hands raised. Patterson stood among them. Martinez froze. He stepped forward, his face shadowed but calm. "You found it, didn't you?" She held up the files. "You knew." He nodded once. "I suspected. I needed proof." "Proof got people killed." "I know," he said quietly, "and it'll get more killed if we don't finish this the right way." She studied him, searching for deceit. Found none. Only exhaustion, the kind that comes from too many secrets. "Extraction's waiting upriver," Patterson said. "But once we get back, you'll have to disappear again. The people behind this won't stop." She looked down at the files. "Neither will I." He smiled faintly. "I figured." They started toward the boats, Morrison trailing close behind. Then gunfire erupted from the opposite bank. "Ambush." "Down," Patterson shouted. Bullets sliced through the air. One ranger dropped instantly. Martinez grabbed her rifle, scanning for the source, muzzle flashes between the palms. Morrison left flank. He moved too exposed. A burst caught him in the side. He fell hard. "Morrison." She crawled to him under fire, dragged him behind cover. Blood pooled fast. He gritted his teeth. Don't stop, get those files out." "You're not dying here," she said, pressing her hand to the wound. He forced a faint smile. "Don't make promises you can't keep, Martinez." Another explosion lit up the trees. Patterson shouted orders. The few rangers left pushed forward, returning fire. Martinez lifted her rifle not to defend but to finish. Every shot was mechanical, measured, merciless. When it was over, the jungle went still again. Smoke drifted low. Birds didn't sing. Even the insects had gone silent. She looked down at Morrison, his eyes already glassy, his hand limp in hers. For a moment she let herself break, just a breath, just enough to feel it. Then she stood. Patterson approached quietly. He knew what he signed up for. She turned on him, voice sharp. "No one signs up to be expendable." He didn't argue. "Let's get out of here." At dawn, they reached the extraction point. The sea stretched endless ahead, the air heavy with the smell of salt and gun oil. Martinez stood on the shoreline, the files clutched in her hand. Patterson joined her. "You could stay hidden again. We'll bury your name, protect your record." She shook her head. "No, people need to know who signed those shipments, what they cost." "You'll lose everything." She gave a faint, tired smile. "I already did." The helicopter waited, blades whining. Patterson climbed aboard first. Martinez hesitated, looking back one last time at the jungle, the graveyard of her past and the birthplace of her truth. She whispered, almost to the wind, "Sometimes silence saves lives, but sometimes it lets the wrong people write the story." Then she climbed in. Weeks later, the leaks began. Anonymous files, redacted manifests, recorded transmissions. The world called it a scandal. The military called it classified misinformation. But the soldiers at Fort Sherman called it something else, justice. And somewhere far from cameras, a woman with no rank and no name watched from the shadows. She didn't speak, didn't take credit, didn't need to. Because dignity doesn't need applause. It doesn't raise its voice. It simply acts and lets the world decide what that silence meant.